Everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Women Serve Two. Today we have Cindee Conner with us. She is an Air Force vet. She is actually a combat vet with over 20 years of experience. She provided life-saving care to soldiers both stateside and overseas, led and executed multiple complex missions while dealing with high-pressure situations, served and retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2014 after 22 years of service. Serving in the military was one of her most rewarding life accomplishments, and that kind of led her to wanting to own her own business. Also, a spouse to another Air Force veteran turned entrepreneur. She's a mom to an amazing college student daughter studying at Auburn University, and is also a full time caretaker for a parent with Alzheimer's. So, Cindee, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on this episode.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you for having me.
I know, we talked about that you were doing 22 years military experience, transitioning to being an entrepreneur, and that's going to be the main topic of this conversation, this episode, that transition to civilian life, that journey to entrepreneurship. But one thing that I like to do is I like to ask the women why they joined, their military experience, and essentially their journey. So can you kind of tell us like what made you join, and what you did and all that fun stuff?
Sure. So I kind of have a funny reason as to why I joined. I don't come from a family who's had any sort of military experience. No, and I'm first generation Croatian American. So no one in my family ever served, but there was this TV show that I grew up with called China Beach. And Dana Delaney was this army nurse, and I thought she was the coolest person ever. And so, really, she was kind of the reason why the military sparked my interest. And so, I went to nursing school in Los Angeles, and on career day, the services were there kind of recruiting, and I had initially looked into the Navy, but then the Air Force had a much better recruitment, and so I thought this was my chance to kind of be a Dana Delaney in another life, and so I looked at the Air Force, and they took me to Wilford Hall on a C-130, which I thought was cool as crap. And so I did that, and I came back and said, I want to join. And so I did initially only for 4 years. I wanted to see what it was like. And so I was stationed in San Antonio. And then after that, I had gotten an assignment request to go to the Azores off of Portugal. And that just kind of catapulted into this like assignment after assignment. Then it was Germany, and then it was DC and Colorado and Korea. And it just, before I knew it, I had been in for 10 years, halfway through having the best time of my life, also serving my country. I'm super patriotic. And so before I knew it, and had also met my husband around the 10-year mark of my career in Germany, and we got married. And so I just was like living the dream. I mean, I was having a great time, meeting great people. And before I knew it, it was 22 years. And I have a daughter, she's 19, but during my military career, I did have two deployments to Afghanistan and then to Qatar. And those were particularly hard on her. They were hard on our family. My husband and I had deployed simultaneously, so our family had to take care of her. And so while I loved the military, I came to a point where it was getting increasingly harder on my daughter. And so I decided after 22 years to retire. My husband stayed in for another 3, and he retired at 25. But I wouldn't have traded a day for it. It was one of the hardest, most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. And when 9/11 hit, of course, the climate changed for the military. I had been in 10 years and we were not in conflict. And so the military was relatively safe until 9/11. And then we all had to deploy. And so that just kind of changed everything, put things into perspective. But I was already determined to make a career out of it. Same with my husband. Dual military is not very common. Typically, one gets out. He was supportive. I was supportive of his career. He was supportive of mine. We're both only children, and our parents were very supportive of our careers. So we just made it work. So after about 22 and a half years, I retired.
There's like so many things I want to caveat on that. First off, I am also Croatian, and you don't really meet a lot of Croatians. So I'm
Right.
third generation. Yeah. So It's nice to meet another fellow Croatian. And my husband and I also met in Germany. So,
Oh,
one
nice.
thing I tell people is if you have the opportunity to go overseas and, go into live in Portugal or Italy or Germany, like take it because it gives you so much, experience and kind of opens your eyes to like different cultures.
Oh, it does. It does. And our daughter came with us to Korea, and we did a joint spouse assignment there. And even if you talk to her today, she has memories of Korea and the Korean school that she went to. And these are just opportunities that a lot of people don't get. And
Mhm.
I just feel very fortunate and blessed that I did get those opportunities, and she was able to share in that too. So it's just the military is such a unique and beautiful and interesting just space that
Mhm.
unless you're in it, I don't think people really realize it.
I know you mentioned that you went to nursing school. Is that what you did in the military? Or what was your job?
I did. I did. So I graduated from high school, went to nursing school for 4 years, and then I joined right out of nursing school. So I did nursing for 22 years. I did every gamut of nursing you can imagine, from AirVac to pediatric ICU to pediatric clinic, adult med surge, OR. I spent the last 10 years of my military nursing career in the operating room. And so when I was deployed to Afghanistan, that was my main job, as I was an OR nurse. And I was also a flight commander. So I had a lot of leadership roles as well, and clinical.
Well, you mentioned that 9/11 happened. So when I joined, 9/11 already happened. So what was like that transition like in the military? So you were already in 10 years, 9/11 happened. How was the dynamic that shifted in the military?
Well, it was peacetime for me for the 10 years. And so I really did not have, aside from working in a pediatrics ICU, I really didn't have any critical care experience. I didn't have any trauma experience. And so a lot of people in my situation were getting deployed, and we weren't as prepared as we could have been because it was just such a scramble. I deployed about 2 years, 3 years after 9/11. So we were still trying to figure everything out. We were still trying to get the training that people needed. And so for me, that shift was really hard because I went from peacetime healthcare to now trauma healthcare. And we just figured it out. I mean, I
Mhm.
had a great team. We gelled well together, but we hustled and we just figured it out. Now, my second deployment was better because we had been in conflict for a while. I was able to go to trauma training in Baltimore and things like that. So that transition was different. But that first one was you went and you figured it out, and we gritted it out. You worked 6 days a week, 15,
Mhm.
20-hour days. It was in an austere environment. You don't have all your bells and whistles like you do in a normal hospital. And you really channel in your inner self, and you just do it. And just do it, and you figure it out later.
You are also an officer because I know you said you retired as lieutenant colonel. How was that like from a, one being a female and then being in a leadership role? What was your experiences like?
Well, I think, in the military, women are respected a lot more in the workspace than in the civilian sector. It goes by rank, so there's a lot of respect that goes behind the rank, regardless of your gender. But I did work in an operating room that was predominantly males. And so oftentimes, as a female officer and as a leader, I would be in charge of them, despite them being a surgeon or a doctor. Sometimes they wouldn't listen. And so because it's because I was a female. And so you just have to get grounded. You know what's right and wrong. You go back to your leadership experience and you do what's right. And if it means putting them in their place, or if it means that they are going to get reprimanded for a behavior, and then you have to do it. It's not personal. It's a job. It's the mission. It's what's right. Thank goodness we have a chain of command. So if I wasn't really making any progress or getting anywhere, you go up the chain. But at the end, You know what needs to be done, regardless of your gender.
I love that. And, I have a friend who's also a female nurse, and I can't remember exactly what aspect she's in. I think PACU. She was PACU. Anyway. Um, and she says very similar things that you're saying too. So even, in 15 years later, it's still very similar. What is like one of like the pivotal moments in your military career that kind of inspired or influenced your journey towards entrepreneurship as a female veteran? Because you already retired, you already did 22 years. So you were like, okay, I'm time to step back. I got my pension. What was like that pivotal moment for you?
Well, so the company that I own now is has nothing to do with healthcare at all. It's in the food industry. It's called Raised Craze, and we make charcuterie boards and boxes. And so during my military career, I was always the one that would do parties, put together the promotion ceremonies, put the retirement ceremonies together, the going aways. I was kind of the social person wherever I was stationed. And so I'd love to cook, and I would always make these great meals and just these events. And so that kind of just kept following me. And people would say, you really should do this on the side, or you should do this when you retire, be a caterer or go to culinary school, which I always wanted to go to culinary school, but I couldn't do it because moving around so much, it just was difficult. So it wasn't until after I retired that I was stationed at Seymour Johnson with my husband. He was on an assignment there. And so my social event planning days of being on active duty now carried over into my retirement days as a military spouse. And so I started to do events and plan socials for the base. And so it kind of transitioned from what I was doing in the military into the civilian side. And again, people would say, why aren't you doing this as a business? Why you're passionate, you're very good at it. And I just thought it's just a hobby. Like why would I go into business for this? So it took me 10 years. It's been a long journey, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-reflection. I felt like I was floundering. Like you go from this high pressure profile position, you made it a career, it's a good portion of your life, you retire, and then the next day, I'm not Lieutenant Colonel Cindee Conner anymore. I'm Cindee Conner. And I went through this huge identity crisis. So like I came from such a structured environment where I was told what to say, what to wear, how much to weigh, how to act, to virtually the next day, like not having that direction and that guidance anymore. And so it's kind of a long answer to your question, but it was, I guess it was what I had done in the military socially transitioned over into my civilian life. And after much soul searching and really never, I finally decided to take the plunge and to do my love and passion into this business. And so that's kind of what inspired me to buy this business and to start it. And then also my daughter is very pivotal in this because she's my only one, and she has said to me, Mom, this is your time now to pursue your passion. Do what you love. And she also said, I can't be your hobby anymore. You need to find something to do. And so with that, I just said, this is the time to do it now. She's in college. It's been 10 years for me to figure out what I want to be when I grow up and what to do. And so that's kind of how I'm here.
Oh, I love that your daughter kind of pushed you because, as a mom and as a caretaker, like, even though you still want your own identity, like kids, they always, they are your identity, right? And then, you're not the first person to mention to me about once you get out, having that period of, okay, what do I do now? And I know, talk to a couple other females about this too. It's like that whole period of feeling lost. Like you come from a position, you're right, like you're at a high rank position. For people who don't know, lieutenant colonel is it is really up there. So like you're coming from a high position and then, you get told what to wear every day, what to do, like you're in this routine and then all of a sudden you're out and you're like, what do I do with my time? And that self-doubt or trying to figure out what to do, it is hard. So what kind of helped you get over that self-doubt? Because I know taking the leap into going into an entrepreneurship, into a whole different realm after being in something for 22 years is hard. So what kind of things did you do to kind of like push yourself outside your comfort zone?
I would say it's my network, it's my tribe. I have a group of military women who we all support each other, and we all we're each other's cheerleaders. And it was just constant. Cindee, you can do this. Cindee, you can do this. What is your passion? What do you love to do? Let's figure this out. And it took me a long time to figure out what it is I wanted to do, and I would listen to podcasts of other women who are on an entrepreneurship journey, and what they experience. And it's very similar. There's a lot of self-doubt, and for me, I'm such a caretaker, and I always made excuses like, no, I can't do this, I have to take care of my daughter. No, I can't do this, I have to take care of my dad. Or what are they going to do? I have to be here all the time for them. While all the while I'm not getting to do what I want to do. And I'm very driven, I'm very OCD type A. I'm not happy with just the status quo. And so I just felt like I have this professional gaping hole that I needed to do something with. So lots of podcasts, reading books, reading inspirational books, talking to other business women, consulting with my tribe. My husband too, he's been very instrumental in pushing me and saying that you can do this. So I think it's my environment, my surroundings, people that mean a lot to me. My daughter, she was probably one of the big reasons why I didn't do it or sooner, because I thought I still always had to be on standby and ready for her. And she says, Mom, I'm good. Go do this. It's your time. So I think to answer your question, it's just your network, your tribe, getting educated on what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and so that.
Oh, like I'm still amazed that your daughter being so young is like telling you to like just go, mom. Like I'm fine. Like, and I just love that because you're right. Like as a caretaker, you want to like constantly take care. Like you always put other people first.
For
So you
sure.
said it was like a 10-year period. So do you remember that point where you're like, okay, I'm fucking doing it this time. Like, let's go.
Um, yeah, I would say so. Grace Craze is a franchise, and I liked the franchise idea because it's a proven business model. All the kinks have been worked out. To start a business from the ground up. Hats off to people who do that, because that's really hard. And so I was always interested in a franchise. Pre-pandemic is kind of when I started to look. And I looked at a couple of concepts, and it just, those didn't, one was healthcare related because that was my comfort zone. The other one was also food, but they just didn't work out. And then the pandemic hit. And then I thought, okay, I can't do this. Like that, it's almost like I had used the pandemic as a reason not to pursue my dream. And so I worked, we kind of, as the pandemic went on, again, I was visiting my daughter at college and trying to figure out what to do in life. And my dear friend and coach and mentor, she had told me about Raised Trays and how they make charcuterie, and that kind of, again, it was food, it aligned with my passion. And then the founder of this company actually was an Air Force female veteran. So that was kind of another draw for me. And then my daughter pushing me again to really consider it and to look at it. And so that's when I decided for the second time to take the plunge. The first time was the pre-pandemic when I had looked at those franchises, and then I doubted myself. The pandemic scared me. I thought, no, I can't do this. And then as that kind of settled, then I got back in, I talked to my network, I even did some more reading, some more podcasting, some more pushing for my daughter. I said, okay, it's like now or never. But then my father moved in with us and he has Alzheimer's. And so I'm his full-time caretaker. But instead of me saying, no, I can't do this, I need to stay here and take care of him, I just worked through that. And I have a wonderful caregiver who comes and helps me with him so that I can just keep going on, because something will always come up that is going to deter me and put doubt in my mind. And I try really hard to like turn that negativity off. And there's lots of support out there for women, for veterans. I have to find it and keep just persevering on.
Love that, because you're right. Like, there's something's always going to happen, right? And, kind of, again, I know I've already said this, like, you already did your time in the military. You already served your time serving your country. It's your time now. And,
Right.
it is hard to kind of jump that leap of faith, if you will, because it is scary. But, and something's always going to come up. How do you believe that your military experiences and your skills and your mindset have contributed to your success as an entrepreneur, especially like in a traditionally male dominated business landscape?
Well, I think what the military has done for me is it's given me confidence, because what I've seen and what I've done, a fraction of the people in this world haven't done it. And so I can go into my business, and I mean, there have been a lot of ups and downs with this journey, but I just channel back to what I did in the military, just a strong foundation of leadership and collaborating and teamwork and just all those basic principles that I learned, I used in the military. I transitioned that into this entrepreneurship journey. And there are things that I don't know how to do, but I just figure it out. And that's kind of what he did in the military. There's always someone somewhere where I can get the information. And I just kind of have used those principles along the way in any of my jobs that I've had after the military, and especially with this business journey. I just kind of I figure it out. I go back to those foundational skills that I had when I was in.
How do you, like, quote, quote, figure it out? Are you reaching out to other entrepreneurs? Are you reaching out to your tribe? Are you trying to go more like business route and you try to go through, like business books? What resources do you use to essentially figure it out?
So I've tried to, I work really hard on expanding my network. I'm in a women's business group. I'm in a veteran business group. I'm in BNI, so with a lot of local businesses. So I see other people who maybe have an expertise in that area, or I love to listen to podcasts. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'll read business books. I will reach out to my network of friends or other people who are in the similar business. And what's nice about this franchise is that we're, a large group of people all doing the same thing. And so they are a really great source of information. If I don't know, if I'm unfamiliar with how to do a process, I can reach out to them. So just kind of like the network of people that I continue to grow and I continue to meet, I reach out to them to kind of help me, guide me through things too. And my husband's very business savvy, so he helps me as well. I try really hard. If I come up to an obstacle, I rarely ever say I can't do it. I say I can, I do it, and then I go and I find the information.
I think it's like, a big thing that people should take away is networking. Because when I went and got my MBA, one of the things that we were always told is your network is your net worth. Sometimes some of the experiences and, um, expertise of fellow business people, like, you're not going to be able to find in business books, and expanding that. And sometimes, like, they'll be able to connect you to people who do know other people and just expanding the network. So, if people are interested in business, I think one of the things, key takeaways is definitely network. And if,
You have
you're,
to.
yeah. And even if you like, even in the military though, like, you should still always network, because even in the military aspect, like, you never know Small Air Force. I know you and I were both Air Force, but it's a small military, really. It's definitely a small Air Force. So, like, you don't know who you're going to run to, down the line on the next assignment. And keeping those connections could be almost pivotal in, career progression or, just family help or, whatever that you may need. One
You
thing,
never know. You never know who knows who and who knows what. It's amazing. As I mean, I'm aggressively networking now, as I open up this business, and it is amazing how one person can lead to another person to lead to another person. It's amazing to see the connections. And I'm active on LinkedIn, so I'll post something on LinkedIn, and then all these other people just come out of the woodwork, and you either know them through somebody else or they're in a similar profession that you're in. It's just networking is so vital. I really didn't realize how important it is. And if you're shy and you don't like to network, you got to get past that, because I'm more on an introverted side, and this has really made me channel my inner extrovert. And so
Mhm.
you really have to get out there.
I struggle with that too. Like, I believe it or not, like I am really an introvert. Like, I'm good with small groups, like 2, 3 people, but once you start getting into like 10 or plus, like I start like closing in into that extrovert or introvert aspect.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to tell myself, I'm like, okay, Brittany, you have to put yourself out there. Like, you just have to do it. Like, I just get in my head and I almost have to hype myself up. I'm like, okay, let's just do this.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
you're right. So I think that's a huge key takeaway here is network, network, network. And then one thing that I do like that you mentioned was the whole franchising aspect, that you had someone to kind of ask for guidance because they've already been through it. So I know franchises are actually really, really big with veterans because it is a proven business model. They have that support. Did you find like that's one of the reasons why you chose franchising?
I did because, well, they say military people are good at franchises because we can follow directions, right?
Mhm.
You have an ops manual, and that's what we're used to. And, steps A through Z, we're really good at following that. So I liked that it's structured because I like structure. And you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And so there's always somebody there that can be of support, can be of information, assistance to you. And so that's really what attracted me to franchising. I don't think I could have done this from the ground up by myself.
Do you think you ever would possibly go from the franchising to your own? I do know some people do that. They start off with a franchise and then they're like, I don't want to pay the franchising fees. I don't want to be, running it this way. So they kind of pivot and create their own. Do you see that
I
possibly
don't
in your future?
I don't think I'll do that just because I like the networking, and I like how we're a group, we're a team, we're all working towards um the same the same goal, to be in business for yourself, to financially support yourself. Just don't I like that team, that group dynamic. And so I don't see myself leaving it to do it completely on my own.
What were like the biggest challenges you faced as like a female veteran and how did you overcome those?
Let's see. Some of my biggest challenges. I think it was for me, it was just the uncertain, like when I left the military or during the military.
Um, let's do both.
Okay. I think leaving the military for me, the big challenge was I had no direction. I mean, I retired without a plan, which was in hindsight not very smart. They send you to training, like to chaps training, a transition training, but it's really I got to prepare you for your next job, how to write a resume, what do you need to do professionally. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a mom for a while, a present mom, because I felt like I hadn't been present because I was gone so much. So for me, that one of the big challenges was just redefining. We talked about this a little bit before. It was just redefining myself. I had this huge identity crisis. People would say to me, "Oh, you could be a mom, and you could be a wife, and you could be a daughter again." And I'm like, why? Because I'm female? Like, that's more, there's more than that I want. I want to have another profession that I had no idea what it was. I just was in this spiral black hole of just not, I was so lost. I had no direction. I didn't know who I was anymore. And so that was one of the biggest challenges. And it lasted a long time of just figuring out who am I now? That chapter of my life is over. And so it took a long time. And then
Oh, no, I was gonna say, so what are the challenges? So, the whole getting out, yeah, like, that is like, we've talked about that already. That is a huge challenge. So then you decided to go into that entrepreneurship. What was the biggest challenges going from trying to figure out where you're at to that entrepreneurship and then getting into that business and moving forward?
I guess the challenge for me through that journey was just trying to do it, like just trying to navigate through all of that. Like, financially, is it something that we could do, that I could not have to work in my nursing career to be able to fund that? A challenge of, how my husband was still active duty. Like, how are we going to take care of our daughter? Because he was gone all the time and he was deploying too. So it was just, I guess, the challenges of just how am I going to make that all happen and then try to start a business. I just felt like I was still so tied back to the family and trying to take care of them.
You
Does that answer?
brief Yeah, you briefly mentioned finances. When you retired, did you end up getting a job right away or did you live off your pension? Did you use your retirement to fund this new business venture or did you seek out some veteran loans?
So when I retired, I did take some time off because I wanted to be around for my daughter more. But then I ended up going back to work, to nursing, and so I did that full time. Up until recently, I'm still doing it part time, but I'm eventually completely leaving nursing. So that additional income, kind of helped, because with franchises, there's the initial startup fee, and then there's all the fees that go with opening up your business. So I did have to work to kind of help pay for all of that. And having a disability and a retirement check does help with that funding. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility. But that was another challenge, was trying to work and start this business at the same time, and all the other demands in my life made it, makes it really hard. It's so challenging. I know there's SBA loans and things like that that you could take out. I'm not at that point yet, and I may have to do something like that in the future as I completely leave nursing. But that's kind of what I did initially.
I know, because again, you mentioned that you're also a caretaker for your dad who has Alzheimer's. How were you able to manage and handle, still going to work, starting up a business, being a caretaker, being a wife, actually a military wife? How were you able to manage all of that?
I don't sleep. I
Yeah,
mean,
for
it's my day is ridiculous. I'm up at 3 a.m. I get up at 3, I make my dad's snack and his coffee, I get the dog, I have a sick dog, so then I take care of the dog. And then so I do that from like 3 to 4, and then from 4 to 8 I work remote at my remote nursing job. And then during that time, I get my dad up. He goes to his memory care senior center. So I get him up. I get him ready for that. The bus picks him up, luckily, from the house. So then he goes to the senior center. And so then after that, I work, I finish up my remote job, and then I work on my business. take care of the house, doctor's appointment, whatever is thrown at me, throughout the day. I'm still having a pulse check on my daughter. She has some health issues, so making sure that she stays on top of all of that. And then my dad comes home from daycare, and then we got to take care of him. And then now I have the aide who comes and helps me take care of him, because before I didn't have her. And so I was having to do all of that by myself with him. But so now she helps me. And then I have my evening activities. I try to take care of myself or work out in the middle of all that. It doesn't always happen. We try to set some time for myself, which is really hard. And then my husband comes home and I get the dinner going and the nighttime routine, and then to bed, and then start again the next day at 3 a.m.
I cannot believe that you just said 3 a.m. Like, I
Yeah.
will say that when I got your email this morning and it was like early for me, I was like, what is this woman doing up so early?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I've
is,
always been an early riser, always. But like, don't ask me for anything at 8 p.m. Like, I'm completely wiped out. But yeah, it just works for me. It just,
yeah.
I mean, other people, anybody who's close to me knows that I keep crazy early hours, and it's just, I'm most productive, sharpest at 3, 4 in the morning, and it just works.
That works for you. A lot of people say that they do, wake up early because there's no one else up, so they're able to get more things done, and they are
Right.
more productive because everyone else is essentially still sleeping. But
Yes. I think that that helps too, because like once 8 o'clock rolls around, the phone is ringing, somebody's at the door. It's, all this commotion going on, and I can get the most of my work done super.
I give you kudos. I always tell myself I wish I could be a morning person, and going back through like Facebook memories, always like 10 years ago, Brittany Wick said, maybe someday I'll be a morning person, but today's not that day. And I'm like, yeah, well, nothing changed in the last 10 years.
It's not for everyone, but like I am not a night owl. Like I
Mm.
cannot, I'm useless at 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it's just how we're wired, I guess.
You mentioned that you got an aide. When did you realize that you need to start delegating to be able to kind of, move your business forward and just take some things off your plate?
When I started to really think through my day when the business is open, because it's a store. And so I will need to be there at, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And I needed someone here to be able to get my dad from the bus, and get him settled in the evening. My husband runs his own company. He's the only child, as I mentioned before, and so he takes care of his aging parents. And so really, I'm the only support for my dad. And so knew quickly that I needed to have a backup. I needed to have someone in the afternoons or on weekends that I could count on to help me, especially with my daughter being away. There was really no one else. And so I was forced to find somebody to step in and help with him.
That's like one thing a lot of business owners don't, you know, think about right in the beginning is they can't do it all. As much as we want to, and especially if you're a type A perfectionist type of person, like you want to be able to do it all because you know that you're going to be able to do it right. But there does come a time where, you do need to start delegating. And, it is okay to just go of some of the reins. And the hard part is you do have to trust people that they will, you know, have that same vision for you. As of right now,
Yeah.
how many stores do you have?
Just the one.
Plan on
Just the
like
one.
potentially opening more?
Possibly. I just need to see how this one goes. I don't have a business background, so this is a steep learning curve for me. Just learning everything about business principles and um, how to run this store. So I'm gonna have to see what it's gonna be like for me. And also, I'm 53. Like I don't know
You don't look
how
it,
much
by the way.
I just don't. I'm gonna get to a point, I think, where I'm gonna maybe want to stop for good and retire. I'm not there yet, but I'm just need to see how this journey is and where it takes me. And if it takes me to a place where I want to open up more locations, maybe I'll do that. Being an entrepreneur was the last thing on my professional bucket list. And I always wanted to serve. I always wanted to be in the healthcare industry, and I always wanted to run my own food business. And so this is the last part of my journey, my professional journey. So I'll see where it goes. I can't say for sure that I'll stop here, but I may and follow my daughter around. No, I don't know. I'll have to see where it goes.
How long have you had the brick and mortar?
So I purchased the franchise in 2020,
Okay.
and it actually took. I'm in construction now, so I haven't actually opened. So I hope to open probably in the May timeframe. But what's interesting is even though I'm not open, I'm doing business, because as I network, I am finding that people are asking me for charcuterie boards. And so the OCD, overachiever in me is like, well, I can't say no. Yes, I'll get you a charcuterie board, but crap, I don't have a store. So I partner with a neighboring raised trays. And so they make the boards for me, but then I do all the behind the scenes, the work to get the board, to get it ordered. And so it's kind of been working for me. I get all these orders and I don't even really have an open store. And it's part of that whole networking, and I've just gotten to meet so many people and other business owners who want the product. And so I feel if I tell them no, come back in 4 to 6 months, I could lose that connection and that network. And so I just, and that's where my military training comes in. I just figure it out. Like, I don't know, I can't make you a board out of my house, but I'll get you one. We'll figure it out. So I just kind of channel in all those little experiences that I've had in the past, and just figure it out.
I think like that is like such a big thing that you just said is using your military experience, right? Like you don't have a brick and mortar right now, but you're like, okay, let's adapt and readjust and figure it out because, you're right. Like 4, 5, 6 months down the line, they might have moved to, a different company and built that loyalty to a different company. So sometimes I think, with business owners, like they do have to adapt and pivot, and that's what you're doing and it's working out. And I feel like once you open up your brick and mortar, I think it's just going to be a huge success. where
That's what
where
I
are you
heard.
located?
It will be in Boca Raton, South Florida.
Oh, okay. Ooh, Florida. Okay. So Boca
Yeah.
Raton, if you guys are listening, make sure to check this location out. Because I love charcuterie. My husband's a huge charcuterie person. Like we make it almost every other week for dinner. Like we love charcuterie. I kind of wish you were closer.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, it's a national franchise and they're growing really quickly. So you'll see them pop up more and more. And another caveat to the whole military experience is when someone hears my story and what I've done, I think it already adds a level of credibility, even though I maybe have not worked with them yet or haven't actually gotten them aboard. When they listen to my story, they already can tell, like, I've got good work ethic. I'm a strong leader. I'm adaptable. I collaborate. All of those traits that we get from the military. When someone hears my story, they already believe in me. I think it's just interesting to see. Like they don't know me from Adam, but when they see my background, I feel like they can trust me already.
Like having that experience, like I know we've already hit, the nail on the head with you doing 22 years and being lieutenant colonel again. That's not something a lot of people do. And just having that leadership and having that dedication and commitment, I think is very, very telling. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast is because, a lot of people, they don't align women with serving. Like it's always the male or it's always the husband, which don't get me on that high horse. But, once, they figure out that the woman serve too, hence the podcast, Women Serve Too, It just almost like shifts their mindset almost. Oh,
Right,
okay.
right. Because I'll get like, if my husband and I are together and he talks about his military career and then he mentions, "Oh, my wife served too." They turn and they're like, "Oh, you were in the military?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, women are in the military, you know?"
Hmm.
Or they'll ask, I was at this store with my husband and they were giving a military discount and I had asked the lady at the register, "Oh, do you offer military discount?" And she said, "Oh, we do." And so she looked at my husband and said, "Can I see your ID card?" And I'm like, "Lady, I'm the one that served in the military. I served in the military too. Here's my ID card." And she was like, "Oh, really?" It
Hmm.
still amazes me that people are surprised that women serve. It just amazes
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
I can't even tell you how many times between my husband and I, like, we both handed our IDs and he got upgraded to first class and thanked for his service. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like it literally says active duty, but I
No.
digress. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
crazy that a lot of people still, you know, associate women with the military. And I get it, it is a very male dominated, know, field. But, one thing I always tell my whole husband is never assume that it's the male. So if you're
Right.
talking to a female, ask if they served because even if it is a spouse and they're like, and you know that they didn't, don't ever make the assumption
Right.
because women serve too.
For sure.
Well, like you said, a lot of individuals are inspired by your story. Like, what advice do you have for fellow female veterans, aspiring to start their own business? And what resources or support networks have you found valuable in your endeavors?
So I would suggest, if you're transitioning out of the military, to really take time to think about what that next chapter is going to look like for you. Like, what do you want to do? That's the perfect time to look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your passions. Take classes. If you have an interest, take some classes, read some books, listen to podcasts, just to kind of find out what the art of possible is. Like I said, I didn't do that. I just kind of abruptly, I retired and the next day I woke up and was like, "Oh, I'm going to rearrange, my stock drawer." But like, you can only do that so many times before that emptiness really starts to hit. So start getting those wheels in motion before you retire. Don't wait until that next day after retirement to try to figure out what your life is going to look like. And what was that? What was every question?
Like, what resources and support networks? Because I know you mentioned several times about podcasts. Like, do you have a specific podcast that you listen to or that you find valuable, or books or anything?
Not one in particular. I bounce around. It just depends what I'm interested in that day. So if it's about health and fitness, I'll, search health and fitness podcasts. If it's about female entrepreneurs, I'll look that up. It's just kind of whatever I'm interested in that day, I'll look up a podcast for. But there's lots of organizations, female veteran organizations out there, small business administration, chamber of commerce. If you're wanting to become an entrepreneur, is a great source. We have a really great chamber in Boca that has women-led groups, women in business opportunities. Oh, just things like that, just like networking organizations. I found helpful.
Okay. So, like, for someone who's listening to this podcast, and it doesn't even have to be just like the business aspect, but what are some final thoughts or some key takeaways that someone listening to this, what would you say to them? Like, what advice do you have?
For them to start, just if they were starting a business.
Like, in general, like being a female in the military or just like any advice, because you have so much experience in so many different realms. Like, what advice or just key takeaways would you like to tell another female vet?
Just to get to know yourself again. I feel like I lost who I was during my time in the military, because you conform to that world. And so you become who they want you to be. And so leaving that environment, just getting to know who you are as a person. What do you like? What do you want to do? What are your interests? And just getting to know yourself. taking better care of yourself. I didn't do a very good job of that in the military, and just getting back to my roots, just getting grounded, and figuring out what my passions are, and what I want my next journey in life to be. Because typically when you get out, you're still young and you still have a whole nother 20, 30, 40 years to pursue another life. And what does that look like for you? And just to kind of take some time to self-reflect and figure out what that looks like for you. Because now it's your time. You're not being told what to do and how to do it. And so that's hard. It's harder said than done. So for me, that's what I would recommend is self-reflection, get grounded, get back to who you are and who you want to be. This is your time now.
Love that. So if people wanted to connect with you, and especially since you're going to have a brick and mortar opening up soon, how can they, find you, stay connected, and then if they do live in Boca Raton, help support your business?
So I'll have a store website called gracepraise.com, and you can search for the local location. And then I'm also on Facebook, Grace Praise North Boca. And then I'm having an Instagram, Grace Praise North Boca as well, and that will be coming down the line shortly.
Put all of those links in the show notes. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to Cindee. Cindee, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise, share your journey. It's been truly inspiring.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I appreciate this opportunity.
If anyone has any questions, please reach out to Cindee or myself. Again, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, we will talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.